authority to the AMCs to govern appraisers to see if they're complying with this rule? And how would the board enforce the rule if I'm called before this board because I didn't put the fee in the report? Would my defense be, tell me how it harmed the public? That's the biggest question I think faces this board this morning. Just quickly, on a good note, thank you for all you do. This board has done tremendous, this board and all your predecessors and staff has made tremendous strides in increasing the professionalism of what we do every day as appraisers. And I appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker.
The next speaker is Dave Cosarelli.
Again, thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak to you today. In having the actual fee disclosed within the appraisal, any private appraisal work, that fee's already been agreed to, arranged, and it is not a public document. An appraisal is not. That is between you and your client, and it's up to us to keep it confidential. What your client does with it is another matter. So from our standpoint, putting the fee in the report is not going to hurt in any shape, way, or form, but add transparency so that there isn't another party adding charges so the consumer who's actually paying that fee can know exactly what the appraiser was paid and what the upcharges were for anybody involved in the process. It's purely transparency and protecting consumers. Dealing with the reasonable and customary fees, Mr. Austin's correct. If perception of compliance one is allowed to be part of the rules, yeah, if you use the data by AMCs, it's going to bring down the fees. But both the federal law, and I'm talking about the law, not the rules now, say it should be objective third party and AMC fees should not be considered. North Carolina takes that a step further and says that only, and I remind this board that the rules are there to support and enforce the law, okay? And the law very clearly reads what methods may be used to determine reasonable and customary. So I'm going to read that to you. Rules establishing customary and reasonable fees shall be based on objective third-party information such as academic studies and independent private sector surveys. Those are your options. In terms of enforcement, we're not asking you to set those fees, but we're saying the AMCs need to use one of those two methods based on current North Carolina law. And that's the only thing you have an option to do and comply with the law. Adding presumption one is not available based on North Carolina law. On 3 occasions, this board has either attempted or tried to put in rules that we believe, in my opinion, conflict with North Carolina law. First one we've discussed, if applicable. There's nothing in the statute that says that AMCs may remove appraisers for business reasons. While I don't have a problem with that, when the AMC came to the concern, with that concern to this board should have referred them to the state legislature to get that added to the appraiser, a reasonable and customary. If you allow presumption one to be a part of this, you're violating North Carolina law. Because nowhere in the statute does it say that you're allowed to use that. We point to the federal law as showing an example of why they are putting this in the law. But we don't go on and say anything about the rules, which is where presumption 1 and 2 are included. But more importantly, as a sovereign state, we are allowed to take a federal law and have to enforce it minimally, and we can't take it and make it more stringent, which is what's happened in North Carolina. You have 2 options. I've already stated what they were. And these are the things that this board currently has the authority to do, in my opinion. And anything outside of that, you will be violating the state law. In terms of eliminating appraisers for retaliatory issues, and that whole section, if applicable, should be removed since you're delving in that manner immediately. I believe that you are currently, as this board stands, violating North Carolina law, because there is no statute that law can tie to. where that rule can tie to. Without the statute, you can't have a rule. It's as simple as that. And so currently what you have inadvertently done in trying to do something that I don't disagree with generally, they should have the ability to remove an appraiser for business reasons if they're no longer going to cover a part of the town. That's fine, but it needs to be done through the state legislature so that they can define what are business reasons, what is appropriate, how does that done, and then the rules established for it. We did this wrong. We need to fix it. I thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Stephen Carr. If you could state your name and who you're representing.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephen Craddock. Good morning to you, Mr. Chairman, Appraisal Board members, staff members, and guests here in the audience. Also wanted to welcome the online audience watching at home, in their office, or wherever they may be. I'm Stephen Wayne Craddock, a North Carolina Certified Residential Real Estate Appraiser. Many of you board members and staff know me as the president of NCPAC. But today I'm speaking to you as Stephen Craddock, who is an independent real estate appraiser and a North Carolina appraiser education provider. I want to tell you about my concerns as an appraiser and as a continuing education provider, as a consumer, and as a member of the public. As far as classes online, my main concern is that most of the trainee applicants that are coming into the real estate appraiser profession now have no prior experience whatsoever in the real estate profession. Back in the 1990s, when licensing first began in North Carolina, most all of the appraisers, applicants that entered into our profession were from already the real estate field. They were working as real estate agents and working as appraisers. I know how difficult it can be learning a new profession not having been from the real estate industry prior to getting into appraising. I then was a full-time North Carolina licensed electrical contractor with zero experience whatsoever, other than the fact that I had purchased a couple of homes. What I learned in the physical classroom was invaluable. I could ask a question wherever, whenever. I could interact with my fellow students, learn from their questions and the answers that the instructor would give. I was interacting. It all to build those relationships with what would then later be my appraiser peers. USPAT speaks of daily activities with peers in your market. And unfortunately, interactions like that cannot happen inside of an online classroom. These kind of interactions are very, very critical at this entry level of our profession, and that's actually what the truth is. You're getting in on the ground floor. As a CE instructor in multiple states and as an appraiser, I urge you to vote no to having qualifying education online so we can keep these important building blocks of learning in the classroom. As far as fee reporting within appraisal reports, this section does not need to be for all 1 to 4 family appraisal assignments, but it needs to be for all 1 to 4 family AMC or a third party derived assignments. The logic for this is really simple. A client who directly engages the appraiser, they already know what the appraiser is charging. Therefore, it doesn't need to be listed in the report. On the other hand, when an AMC or a third party client actually puts that in the report, what you're going to end up with is, if it's not in the report, the borrower or the recipient of the report, they will just not know what the appraiser received. This section really should include some language that mandates the appraisers disclose the fee paid to the AMC, the fee to be paid to the appraiser by the client, all other fees that are paid by the appraiser during the course of the assignment, and also any other fee paid by the appraiser to secure the assignment in the first place. I urge you to vote no to the proposed rule as it is currently written, as it does not explicitly tell the borrower where all their money went. When it comes to CNR fees, the 2016 amendment to the North Carolina General Statute Law is clear in 93E24I. Rules establishing customary and reasonable fees shall be based on objective third-party information, such as academic studies and independent private sector surveys. Does not say a word about AMCs would determine rates. The reason that presumption 1 cannot work is that steps 1 and 2 out of the 6 required steps listed in the NCAB's guidance document for compensating appraisers at a rate that is reasonable, one of those being determining the type of property. The second one, determining the scope of work. Both of these items out of those 6 must be performed by the appraiser prior to giving their fee for an assignment. Only the appraiser can determine these 2 steps, and consequently, only the appraiser can determine the fee for an individual assignment, not an AMC. I urge you to vote no to the proposed rule as it currently is written, as it does not enforce the law that already exists in General Statute 93E24, and it does not meet the federal requirements set out by Dodd-Frank. And for those of you who are pushing the term free trade, and I know many of you are familiar with this, I want you to think about this. Free trade is a free market policy, which is one of the cruxes of the free market system. Free trade occurs when goods and services can be bought and sold between buyers and sellers without tariffs, quotas, or any other kind of restriction being applied. Before the dawn of the HDCC and later the Dodd-Frank Act, we had what one might call free trade in our profession. One could sell their services for an amount they believed they were worth. The reality of this is, as it pertains to appraising, is that the AMC model does not perpetuate free trade for appraisers, nor does it encourage transparency. Normally, AMCs operate by sending out emails to appraisers looking for low bids with fast turn times. Then they expect to take somewhere from 25 to 75% of what lenders used to pay appraisers directly for the appraisal services, leaving the appraisers making less overall per appraisal than they did.
Good morning. I'm David Massey. I'm president of the North Carolina Real Estate Appraisers Association. We'll just call it the association because it's too long. And I'm speaking on behalf of the association. I appreciate this opportunity. It's unprecedented. This is the first for me, and the first I can remember we've been able to speak our public comment. Roberta read the letter we wrote, and I just want to hit some highlights on there. The registration renewal, which is 57D.0202, the association would like the board to consider additional language that would ensure AMC renewal fees are not passed on to the appraisers. We appraisers are feed to that. There's technology fees, there's upload fees, there's AMC fees. It just goes on and on and on. It's $30 here and $10 here and $6.40 here. These fees are hidden, and we're having to pay them. The next item is 5070.0311, removal of an appraiser from an appraiser panel that previously already been stated. The phrase "if applicable" in section C of this rule, we feel like should be removed. There are good reasons to remove appraisers from an AMC panel, or from a bank, from anything. And, use pass violation, just bad appraisal. But if applicable, would allow people to remove appraisers for any reason, for any business reason. And the rules should not be written so they do not follow legislative requirements. So the if applicable should be removed. And the customary and reasonable fee portion, as Stephen had mentioned, let me say it this way. If y'all know as a board, if the board is a rule-making authority, not a statute-making authority or a law-making authority, and we feel like that presumption one is contrary to the statute on the book by the legislative branch of our government. I'm going to read it again. It just clearly states the board shall adopt rules necessary to enforce subsection rules establishing customary and legal rates shall be based on objective third-party information such as academic studies and independent private sector surveys. We're, again, our association is concerned that the proposed rule violates state law. The law states rules establish customary and legal fees shall be based on objective third-party information. We're opposed to any rule that suggests it's acceptable for an agency to determine the customary and legal rate based on any method that deviates from the method set forth already in state law. Finally, on section 6.0503 records, and in doing so, I can outsource, and I've done this, outsource the typing of my reports and pay somebody to do it. I can't then pass on I cannot pass on that cost to my client. This hypothetical, I pay somebody $50 to type a report, I can add $50 to my fee. And what's happened and what's been placed on our backs as appraisers is the bank, lending institution, AMCs, have taken the cost of this outsourcing and passed it to us. You know, I don't know what the consumer is paying for an appraisal, but they're paying X, and then Y is being deducted, and the appraiser is getting Z. And there's no transparency there. The biggest complaint or concern is that the fee that really the lenders and the users of the report should be paying has been passed on to the appraiser, and it has hurt our industry tremendously. So I would encourage you to follow the statute for customary and reasonable fees, that it's simply based on a third-party survey. And I really do appreciate the time, and it's an honor to stand before you, and I appreciate the staff, and you have a great board. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Seth Palmer.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. My name is W. Seth Palmer, and I'm the Regulatory Affairs Director for NC Realtors. On behalf of our more than 41,000 members across the state, including more than 1,300 licensed appraisers, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about these proposed rules. As the state's leading real estate industry advocate, we recognize the important role that appraisers play in our business and its long-term viability. We appreciate our continued engagement with the board and staff on issues of importance to the industry and consumer protection. As you have heard in the recitation of our complete comments, I have chosen to only speak to two issues as a matter of clarification. Those issues will be the presented rules related to education, as well as those related to customary and reasonable fees. Regarding education, while we understand that the board already allows continuing education to be completely taken via an online platform through 57A 0204, we feel that combined with proposals to treat general education requirements in a similar way, all parts should be re-examined. Online education, while possessing its own merits, presents significant problems to the true education of licensees in a profession which requires professional know-how and public engagement. In-person education is still the most widely offered method from other licensing boards and bodies in this state, as well as in the education sector generally. Without significant study by this board, we feel it would be irresponsible to proceed with these rules as written. In the area of customary and reasonable fees, we applaud the work that the board and staff has done over the past number of months and years on this important issue facing this industry. We appreciate the